Hello and welcome back, goats, to the BigBluePurple channel. With the release of patch 6.45, we finally got some new Blue Mage content for the first time in a few years. This was also the first Blue Mage update I had the pleasure of playing on release. I didn't play the game back when Blue Mage got updates before. So in this video, I want to talk about my experience doing the new content as Blue Mage, what I thought of it, what I liked, and what I didn't. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So the first thing you got to do with the new Blue Mage content is actually hit the new level cap, which is now level 80. To do this, I went to Labyrinthos, and on patch day there were tons of Blue Mages running around helping each other level. So I just got invited to a party and leveled that way. But you could also have a friend who's not in your party and not a Blue Mage help you kill the enemies in Labyrinthos, as long as they're level 80. If they're higher than level 80, you're not going to get a good XP from it. They have to be exactly level 80. And if you can't find someone to help you level and there's no Blue Mages running around leveling together, the other thing you can do is spam the Ram's Voice Ultra Vibration combo like before to just kill enemies your level, one-shot them, and then you queue into a dungeon and leave instantly, like just unsync queue into a dungeon, and it'll reset your cooldown so you can just keep spamming Ultra Vibration. It took me like less than an hour to level, just running around with a bunch of Blue Mages. I imagine if you're spamming Ultra Vibration, it'll take a little bit longer, like if you're solo leveling, and if you have a friend with you who's helping you level, that'll probably be the fastest method. You could probably get this done in like 30 minutes. So yeah, leveling is super quick, and you're done with it before you even know you started. I'll also say, if you've never done any Blue Mage stuff before and you're interested in it, now's definitely the best time you could possibly start because there's so many people like doing Blue Mage content again. Tons of people who have never done it before. There's so many like spell learning parties up for older spells that people don't have yet. Now, on the topic of new spells, back when I did Blue Mage initially, I remember complaining a lot that most of the spells generally felt the same to use and they just had different visual effects. If you've been a Blue Mage, you know exactly what I'm talking about. 220 potency for the first enemy, 50% less for the remaining enemies, and that's like 80 spells in your spell kit. Thankfully, this time around with these new Blue Mage spells, they feel a lot more inspired and unique, and they actually made an effort to like make interesting synergy and just interesting spell compositions you could come up with this time around. Which makes it very annoying that they didn't give us any extra spell slots. We're still stuck with only 26, but it's whatever. I don't understand why you'd add 20 new spells and then not give us the opportunity to equip like 2 extra spells. That being said, some of these new spells are insanely powerful and just really cool ideas as well. One of my favorite new additions would be the Mortal Flame spell. It functions as a permanent DOT, but only one Blue Mage in the party can actually use it. There's another new DOT as well called Breath of Magic, which functions in a similar way where only one player can have it on the boss at a time, but this one's basically a double potency Song of Torment that also functions as AoE. So this lets you communicate as a party of Blue Mages, like who's going to bring the DOT spells, who's going to bring this, who's going to bring that, and it just gives more variety to your kit as a Blue Mage, which is much appreciated. The new spell from Innocence or Vothri, Winged Reprobation, is also a super cool new idea. Each time you use it, you build stacks of this buff up to 4, and then after the 4th stack, the ability will go on cooldown, so you can use the ability 4 times in a row before it goes on cooldown. And then if you use another new spell called Conviction Marsado from the Mount Gulg dungeon, that spell actually does like twice the potency as a result of having 4 stacks from the Vothri spell. So once again, just interesting spell synergy that lets you really think about what you're going to bring in your kit. Another noteworthy spell is the new Goblin Punch. It's a really nice spell for tank Blue Mages because it does more damage when you hit the opponent from the front, and it also gets bonus potency if you're under the effect of Mighty Guard. So this is really good for soloing content too. When you have Basic Instinct and Mighty Guard up at the same time, Goblin Punch is going to do way more potency. These are just a few examples, but most of the spells that were added in this patch are pretty unique and interesting. There's still some filler spells that like you could tell, like, what am I ever going to use this for? But for the most part, a lot of the spells are unique, interesting, and innovative for the Blue Mage job. As for actually learning the spells themselves, I had a really fun time with this, and I think a lot of that came down to the fact that I was doing it on patch day, where there was still a lot of excitement around this new stuff, and there were tons of parties. I remember when I joined my party for like all these spell learnings, they'd fill so fucking fast, like instantly. The moment you joined up, like 5 other people joined and it was full. This made getting the new trial and raid spells like super quick and painless, and it was fun to do these fights on Blue Mage and play around with the new stuff we have. In terms of the dungeon spells, I actually opted to solo all of these because I like kind of the added challenge of soloing dungeons as Blue Mage. It's kind of a fun little experience. Plus, it just increases the amount of time you spend doing Blue Mage content, and with how little Blue Mage content we actually got in the grand scheme of things, you're gonna want this content to take you a while. Soloing the dungeons themselves were pretty straightforward. I don't think I really struggled with anything. The one that stood out was actually the final boss of the Hero's Gauntlet. I think he's just called the Berserker. His stack marker does ridiculous damage, and if you don't have tank mimicry, you need Diamondback to survive it in my testing. Dragon Force with Gobskin wasn't enough, it still just did insane damage. Otherwise, a lot of the bosses could just be obliterated with spamming Missile, because a lot of them are vulnerable to that, and the ones that couldn't be spammed with Missile were still pretty straightforward to figure out and kill. Berserker was the only one where I had to actually like go into my spellbook and be like, okay, this isn't working, I need something else. The new Primal spell from Titania also helped a ton with soloing these dungeons because it is an 800 potency attack, which is the highest Blue Mage has ever seen, other than the new Laser Beam spell from Amarat, which technically is more potency, but it takes longer to get all that potency out. So I think bringing the Titania spell will end up being the standard, since those two share a recast time. Having talked about some of the spells and what it was like obtaining them, let's talk about the new Masked Carnival stage, which was what I was looking forward to the most. When it came to doing Blue Mage initially, the first time when I even tried it, Masked Carnival was 100% the highlight to me. It's difficult solo content in a game that doesn't have difficult solo content other than like Deep Dungeon, you know? And it's much more like a raid or an extreme trial experience in how you prog it rather than Deep Dungeon, which is more so just a test of your patience. This was the first Masked Carnival stage I've ever gotten to do completely blind. When it came to the other ones and when I initially did those, the guides were already out and Blue Academy had so many great resources on how to do all those stages. So this was the first time I actually got to do it before there was a guide, and I had to kind of figure out everything myself to earn the title and do the challenge clear. It's a very unique and interesting prog experience within this game to go pull by pull and figure out like, okay, I need to figure out what spell to bring because this isn't working. Like, when the slime first appears at the beginning, you need to bring Ultra Vibration to one-shot it, and you need a spell that freezes it. So first I was bringing Ram's Voice, but then I realized Ram's Voice is kind of a waste of a spell slot. It's better if I use Cold Fog and break it with an auto before the slime spawns. Unfortunately, it was a pretty short-lived experience. I think it only took me an hour or two to get this stage down and get myself the title. And so I was very disappointed that, once again, this is the only Masked Carnival stage we got. Looking back at the level 60 update, and when Blue Mage was initially added, there were so many more Masked Carnival stages. Like, in the level 60 update, we got 5, not 1, and then now, in the level 70 and 80 updates, we're only getting 1 stage, and it's just kind of an annoying precedent that has been set now. It feels like they're just neglecting Masked Carnival and don't really care to expand upon it much, outside of these challenge fights they add once every fucking 2 years. It's even more disappointing when you consider the fact that there's weekly targets that some players actually do every week, and there's no new weekly targets that have been added in this patch. There's no new Masked Carnival stages outside of this one. So have fun doing the same weekly targets for another 2 years and pray that maybe in the next Blue Mage update they'll add more than 1 stage. And it's not like I'm asking for more than 1 like crazy final boss stage like this one. They only need to add 1 of these. It's the other stages, like what Masked Carnival was before they just added boss stages. These weird fun puzzles you had to solve, where you had to figure out which spells were needed to complete them. But maybe I'm just the only person who even cares about this content, since I imagine a lot of people don't even know the Masked Carnival exists, let alone even bother giving it a try. Again, I do really like this new stage they added, and it's a super good addition to the Masked Carnival. It's just not enough. It's been 2 years since we've gotten a Blue Mage update, and this is all they have for us. It would have been nice that with each job quest, maybe you get a new Masked Carnival stage that's on the simpler side of things. It's less of a boss fight and more of one of those weird ad puzzles that you need to solve. And they just did like 3 or 4 stages with the job quests and then had this as the final boss. I feel like that would have flowed a lot better, and it just would have given us a bit more content and maybe some new weekly targets every week. Unfortunately, Masked Carnival isn't the only part of this update I was underwhelmed with. The Savage reward is also very disappointing that it's only a title. There's no mount involved, despite when Alexander and Coil was cleared, you get the Marble mounts. Now when Omega and Eden is cleared, it doesn't do anything. You just get the title, and the title itself isn't even that cool. I feel like The only people who are going to do Blue Mage Savage were the people who already planned on doing it before the update even came out. There's no reward incentive for someone to be like, well, I didn't initially plan on doing Savage, but this fucking mount is sick, so I think I'm gonna give it a shot. It's so weird to me how much of an issue this game has in general with incentivizing content with interesting rewards, especially with the recent, like, Criterion dungeon as well, and just 6.45 in general. All the new content that came out, there's no fucking incentive to even do it other than for the experience. I'm not saying this content needs to give some crazy reward or something, but the new Savage raids as Blue Mage should have given a mount or at least a minion or something else other than a title, because as it stands now, nobody's gonna see this Forbidden Blue title and be like, oh, that's it, I'm sold, I'm gonna start Blue Mage raiding now. Like, but if they added the Titan fucking cart as a mount, I'm sure many of us would be like, I need that, it's time to start Blue Mage raiding. It sours it even more when the Shadow Keeper's just sitting there on the Mog station when it was so clearly a free opportunity to make that the Blue Mage mount. While I'm complaining about incentive to actually do things, let's talk about the Blue Log itself, which has this same issue. Yeah, it can be fun to go and do like these alliance raids and this old content as a party of Blue Mages just for the experience of doing it. Yes, that can be fun. But there's no incentive outside of that. You get allied seals in Poetics, and you get way more allied seals in Poetics for doing hunts instead of this. Why not attach a mount to completing the entire Blue Log, and then people have something to grind for? Or even just a minion, just something other than a title, because a title isn't enough, especially when that title is Blue Blazer. Like, who's going to wear that? Completionist's sake is really the only reason to engage with the Blue Log in the first place. It's so strange to me that an MMO can struggle this much to incentivize doing the new content that they just added. It's just disappointing, man, that we have all these really cool new spells, some of the best spells they've ever added, and there's not really anything to use it on other than the Blue Log if that's your thing, and in my case, I'll probably never touch it unless during the 6.5 content drought. I'm so bored I need to do something. I think the reason this lack of incentive specifically annoys me with Blue Mage is because the pool of players doing it is already so tiny that not having any incentive to even try it if you're not someone like already inherently interested in it, it just means that that pool of players is never really going to expand and grow. It just seems like Blue Mage is eternally damned to be dead 2 weeks after the content comes out. And this is something with as simple of a fix as not adding like double as many spells or like fucking 20 more Masked Carnival stages, as much as I would love that. All they need to do is just give us a reason to do it in the first place. And then so many people that maybe before never even thought about trying Blue Mage, they see the Titan cart on Eden Savage and they're like, you know what? Maybe I'm gonna level my Blue Mage and get this shit because it's cool. All in all, this is just kind of how I've ended up feeling about Blue Mage this patch. Again, I had so much fun doing all this stuff on day one when I could, but for all the new Blue Mage content to have only taken me a day, that's disappointing in and of itself. Yeah, I still have the Savage raids if that's something I want to do, but that comes with its own slew of issues. I'm a Party Finder raider and I don't have a static, and I didn't do those Eden fights when they were current, so I would have to fresh prog them as a Blue Mage. This would be fine if there were more than 5 Blue Mage players in the entire world, but I don't think I'm going to be able to fill a party in Party Finder to do Savage raiding as Blue Mage. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. I will keep my eye out and I'll see if there's parties who are fresh progging that shit and just figuring stuff out. I don't even have BIS for Blue Mage because I didn't even need it for the Masked Carnival stage. I was wearing completely unmelded job gear when I did the Masked Carnival stage, so other than that, there was not really a reason for me to go and get BIS or even meld myself. So hey, if I do go for Savage, that's something to go do and grind out. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the new Blue Mage stuff. There's some new good stuff, especially the new spells, and the one new stage that we got for the Carnival is fantastic. I really enjoyed progging it. But that's kind of all we got, and that's the most disappointing part about this patch. There's no new mounts, there's no new minions, and the new titles we got are pretty mid, and I don't really see myself pursuing them for the sake of wearing that title, if you know what I mean. If we got 2 patches like this for Blue Mage a year instead of 1 every 2 years, perhaps this amount of content would make more sense, but when we waited so long for new Blue Mage content and this is all they have to show for it, again, great spells and a great new stage, but that's it. It's just a bit saddening, and it just feels like Blue Mage is constantly neglected despite being some of the most interesting and creative content this game has to offer. I do hope that if they continue to neglect the Masked Carnival like this, that they at least find another avenue to make difficult and rewarding solo boss fights, because there's something so gratifying about learning a fight start to finish by yourself and having that kind of solo prog experience. I really enjoy that here. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about the new Blue Mage stuff. I hope that if you've never tried Blue Mage before, maybe this patch is an opportunity for you to give it a shot, because as much as I complain about the reward incentive, the actual experience and fun factor of Blue Mage is there, and it's really good. So hey, give it a try, you just might like it, and then you can be disappointed with me every time we get a Blue Mage patch and there's not enough new stuff to do. Otherwise, if you're somebody who has done the new Blue Mage stuff, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on the matter. Do you feel like one Masked Carnival stage every patch is enough and you don't really care about that? Maybe you're more of a blue log type of person who just really enjoys doing that for fun and you don't care about the incentive. I don't know, just give me your thoughts on the comments below. I love to read that shit. I love to hear from you guys. Anyways, drop a like on the video, but only if you did, and consider subscribing to the BigBluePurple channel if you're not already. I make near-weekly Final Fantasy XIV content. I also wanted to mention that I do have channel memberships, so if you're interested in showing some extra support if you really enjoy the content, then that is an option. Otherwise, get out there and go give Blue Mage a try if you haven't yet.